Hey, 100, what's up? And today I'm gonna do a video on the top 40 best albums of 2017. And yes, this is the 100th video of my YouTube channel. And it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be a huge video. But I'm also gonna keep it short because I don't want it to be too long. Like the best songs video that I had put out, that's like almost 1 hour long, so I'm just gonna keep it short. So I just came back to Hong Kong from Thailand, and I had been wanting to do this video for a very long time, so here we are, the long awaited, the very anticipated video of best albums. Before I get into the honorable mentions, I want to mention a few albums that I really want to like, but I just don't like it as much. And not because I think it's bad. In fact, I think they're really good. It's just that I think I'm not experienced enough in the genre that I don't have a professional enough opinion over those albums. Or, in another case, it would be the album is just not really speaking to me too much, so I don't have a solid opinion. I don't have a scored opinion over it. So, there are albums that are really good, that are really worth checking out, but I just don't have a score over it. I just don't know how should I react to it. So it's gonna be the unreviewable albums. So first of all, Primitive Man, Caustic, and Dying Fetus, Wrong One to Fuck With, and also Code Orange's Forever. Now these are really heavy thrash death metal albums that are really critically acclaimed. And I do understand that, but I'm not too experienced in the death metal genre, so I don't have a real saying. I don't have a professional saying about it. So the only death metal album that I'm starting to dig right now is Death Symbolic, but other than that, I don't know. I don't know. And then we also have The Mountain Goats Goths. The album opener, Rain in Soho, is freaking amazing. And I realized that the rest of the album is nothing like the album opener. Not that it's bad, but it's really gothic pop, indie, folk rock music. And it's not really my type of music. It's really peppy, it's really poppy, but not the colorful kind of pop, but gothic pop, and it feels kind of blunt and really shallow, like music wise. So I really don't know what to say about this album. It sounds good, but I really don't know what to say about this album. And then we also have Wiley's Godfather and Ibibio Sound Machine's Uyai, which I think are two very well done albums, but I really don't know what to say, especially for Uyai. I don't understand a word in that album. Same goes for Rosália's Los Angeles, which is in Spanish, but I don't grasp the album. I just don't get the context. And man, I really want to like Kieran J. Callinan's Bravado, and it is basically a very fun, very entertaining synth pop album that always has this house electronic influence over it with those pulsating synths. And it sounds like a parody album, it sounds like a comedic album even, and I don't know if this is like a parody or if this is serious. And those songs are really weird, really freaky. I really like it. Like the album ending, the title track is really good, and I actually kind of regret not putting it in the best songs list, but the rest of the album feels really not my type. And I really, really want to like Kalela's Take Me Apart also, but R&B is not really my type of genre. Or to put it in another sentence, I'm not a big fan of R&B. So if you give me super good R&B music and terrible R&B music, I will not be able to differentiate them really well. I'm not too experienced in R&B music, so Take Me Apart, it sounds fantastic, but I really don't know what to say about it. And then here are the honorable mentions. 21 Savage, Offset, and Metro Boomin, Without Warning. The quality is decent and the flow is okay. I'm not too big of a fan of mumble rap music and these trap infused hip-hop music, but it's decent. Björk's Utopia, a really beautiful and moving record, but other than that, it doesn't do much, but it's still incredibly beautiful. Forced Swords, Compassion. I really like the first 3 tracks on that album, but other than that, it's a little bit muddy, it's a little bit cloudy, and yeah. Sinjin Hawke's first opus. It's really polished, it's really insane, it's really transcendent. I think that's the word for this album, but it's really flashy, really crazy. It's hard to put it into the list, but nonetheless, it's also a really great sounding and well-produced album. Kendrick Lamar's Damn. I'm not a big fan of this album. I think To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City is still better than Damn, but still, Damn is, there's a lot of redeeming qualities about Damn. And then Sharon Jones and the Dap-Kings, Soul of a Woman. A very solid soul funk album, and rest in peace, Sharon Jones. Number 40, Pallbearer's Heartless. And, at first, I don't know if I like this album or not, but because the album opener is a little bit lackluster, but the more I listen to it, the more I realize, yeah, that's kind of the point. It's very vague and spacey and airy, but it's also very grand and monumental. And it's one of the most grand and most ambitious progressive rock albums of the year, so number 40 it is. Number 39, I didn't expect myself to like this album, but I think it's actually kind of good. Lorde's Melodrama. Now, Lorde tries to be mainstream and poppy in a lot of the songs, but I think there's a lot of good pop songs on the album, and a lot of really well-written, well-produced pop moments on the album. I say pop a lot because I'm not a big fan of pop, but Melodrama is actually kind of good. Number 38 would be The National's Sleep Well Beast, which has a lot of beautiful and gorgeous moments. Not like Björk kind of gorgeous, but simply just gorgeous and beautiful and simple. But there's also a couple of sleepy moments on the album, and overall the album is kind of muddy. But this album overall is also really good, in my opinion. Not super good, but it's good. It's decent. Number 37 is Brand New's Science Fiction. And this album is basically about accepting depression and accepting this overwhelming sadness. And that's what makes this album so sad and so tragic and miserable and dark. I kind of like the first 2 tracks, Lit Me Up and Can't Get It Out. It's really emotional and powerful, and it's also a very melodic album. There are moments on this album that I think could be a little bit more dynamic, could be a little bit more lively, but this album, that's the point. It's stale, it's dead, it's deadly, and it's not the greatest musical equivalent of depression, but it captures sadness pretty well, so there it is. Number 35 is Spoon's Hot Thoughts. Now, number 40 to 36 are albums that I don't really want to be in the list, but I think they're also kinda worthy to be in the list. So, those albums, not that they are super great, but I think they're okay. But now we're in the top 35. These albums are good. Spoon's Hot Thoughts is one example. Now, there's a couple of underwhelming songs and moments on the album, and the very abstract experimental ending of the album is a little bit underwhelming in my opinion, but it's a nice try. It's good to see the band experiment a little bit more and explore a little bit more. And man, the title track and Can I Sit Next to You and also Shotgun and also a couple of other songs, they are catchy, they are fun, there are some really fun disco beats on the album as well. The lyrics, there's a lot to be desired on the lyrics, but music-wise, this is a really great and compelling, colorful, and lively album that you should definitely check out. Number 34. I also don't know if I should put this album in the unreviewable category or in the list, because I have a little mixed opinion on this album, but now that I have listened to it a few times, I actually kind of enjoy it, and that is Iglooghost's Neõ Wax Bloom, which is one of the most mind-bending and transcendent and one of the most disturbing but yet compelling and energizing and electrifying electronic albums of the year. In fact, I think this is one of the best electronic albums of the year. I'm not too experienced in the genre, but this album is an experience. The sampling is great, the production is great. And number 33 would be Death from Above 1975's Outrage! Is now! And it sounds like early Muse and early Linkin Park mashed together. And it's amazing, it's very energetic, it's very lively, and it throws back to a lot of early 2010s alt-rock music. So, it sounds really refreshing. Number 32 is Alvvays, Antisocialites. And it's one of the most solid and compelling dream pop, jangle pop albums of the year. The vocals are very natural, they're very straightforward, and I think that's one of the best things about this album. And I also think the instrumentals are very peppy, very poppy and lively. Overall, it's very colorful, it's very dynamic. I love the album opener in Undertow, and Dreams Tonight is also great. And number 31 would be SZA's Ctrl. And that's also one of the most mainstream R&B pop albums of the year. I told you guys that I'm not too experienced with R&B, especially Kalela's Take Me Apart, which is basically 90s R&B bringing to the 2010s, but SZA's Ctrl is a more modern pop R&B album. And I actually kind of enjoy it. I really like the musical production on the thing. The sound qualities are really clear. They're really fine. And there's a handful of good tunes on the album. There are dull moments, but overall, it's great. But this is number 30, and it is Rosália's Los Ángeles. And I guess it's fair to say that I speak a tiny bit of Spanish, which is really weird. But I have no idea what is she singing about on this album without doing my research, looking it up. And overall, this album is a really beautiful, it's a really moving and compelling Spanish folk album, contemporary flamenco album. Her vocals on this thing is amazing. It sounds very pure and fine. Performance is great on the album. The guitars, the vocals, they go together very well. And overall, it's a really sweet, really thoughtful album that I think is a great breakthrough for Spanish music. Put Despacito aside. Number 29 would be Feist's Pleasure.
And you are the same man, either fiction or dreaming. We know enough to admit. We know enough to admit. We know enough to admit.
And Feist came out with a more deep pop album this year, with a more ruminative album, and it takes a few listens to like it, because it's not the most accessible album of hers, but I still think it's a very well done, it's a very well written, it's a sweet folk indie pop album that's very laid back, that's casual, and there's also some emotional moments on the album that I think is pretty good. 28 would be Guirella tosses GT Ultra, which is the most electrifying and the most insane pop album of the year, because it's so loud, it's so energetic, it's creepy. I don't know why. Maybe if you listen to this album you won't think it's creepy, but it's so energetic, it's so crazy, and there's a lot of distorted and glitchy moments on the album that actually kind of creeps me out, because there's so much energy on the album. It's kind of surreal. But there's also a lot of great and catchy tunes on the album. It's really danceable. There's also a lot of groovy songs as well. There's actually 8 songs only on the album, so it's actually quite solid as well. Number 27 would be Alex Cameron's Forced Witness.
There's a light in your head, an apocalyptic plan. We're in love again.
I don't know what should I say about Kieran J. Callanan's bravado, but I actually really like Alex Cameron's Forced Witness. He kind of plays this very goofy and hilarious character in this album. It's like a character portrait, and it's like this 90s throwback album, because there's so much synth pop and simply 90s pop on the album. It's really catchy, it's really melodic, and in a way it's very peaceful, and unlike GT Ultra or some other pop albums of the year, this is very calm, it's very peaceful, it's real rational, but it's also very fun and funny and entertaining and hilarious. There's a lot of personality on this album, and it's like this is a joke album, but Alex Cameron took it really seriously, thus it's a great album. Number 26 would be 30, 29, 28, 27, 26. Open Mike Eagle's Brick Body Kids Still Daydream.
Don't call me nigga, a rapper. My motherfucking name is Michael Eagle. I'm sovereign, I'm from a line of ghetto superheroes.
And it is the most personal, the most intimate, and lo-fi Open Mike Eagle had ever put out. And the album, it takes a lot of listens to enjoy the album, because it's a dense listen. It's a very dense listen. It's also very pulpy and thick, and it's very muddy in a good way, in a very artistic way, and there's also a lot of distorted sound qualities on the album, and it really takes a lot of effort and time to truly like the album, but it's very artistic, it's also very well written, the concept is really good. It's a good album. Number 25 would be Billy Wood's Known Unknowns, which sounds like an average and mediocre hip-hop album at first, but there's actually a lot of redeeming qualities about the album, and there's also a handful of great songs and rap songs with good background music, and the lyrics are also smart. The flow is really nice. Number 24 is Sampha's Process, which is also an alternative R&B UK bass pop album, and it is one of the most emotional and powerful album, but at the same time it's groovy, it's danceable, and it also gets personal with the very gloomy and sorrowful Plastic 100 degrees Celsius to one of my favorite tracks of the year, Blood on Me. Incredibly catchy and danceable, and it never gets old. And I also like how confessional and clean this album sounds. And this album has a lot of sleepy and dull moments on it, but in a good way that's expressive, that's diverse, that's lively. I'm sorry about the numbers getting mixed up because I'm dumb. But this is number 24, and it is Run the Jewels 3.
Run the Jewels live in the garden, licking off shots and we aim for the darkness. Make it get hot for a target. Kids cook s'mores off the crotch of our targets. Kumbaya, bitch.
And it is one of the catchiest, one of the most fun and entertaining hip-hop albums of the year. And it's not as tuneful and as colorful, but the beats are really nice, really well mixed. They're really well produced. The sound quality is really nice too. And it kind of reminds me of Death Grips a little bit because of how beat heavy and bass heavy it is. I really love Call Ticketron, and also a handful of other tracks that are actually really good. The flow is really nice, and it's a really fun album. It's released in December 2016, but it is eligible for the 2017 list. Number 23 would be Remo Drive's Greatest Hits.
Look around in on a sound. You see your bodies. Great few feet on the ground. My label peeling.
I didn't know that I would like this album this much, because the more I listen to it, the more it sounds great. From the very fun and energetic album opener to You're Killing Me, which is really catchy, real fun. I also like tracks like Eat Shit and I'm My Own Doctor and Name Brand. I think that's the album ending. But anyway, there's a lot of great tracks on the album. The track listing is great. It's fantastic. The performances are energetic. The performances are really lively. The songs are catchy. And it's a really happy and fun emo alt-rock album. It's surprisingly happy because, yeah, the lyrics are really negative, but in a hilarious way. So this is also kind of like a joke, but in a really fun way. This is the most fun I had listening to an emo album. Number 22 is Perfume Genius's No Shape.
Don't hold back, I wanna break free. Got it singing through your body, and I'm carried by the sound.
The album is a very emotionally powerful art pop album. It's very artistic. It's also very expressive, really deep and personal at times. Perfume Genius really wrote a lot of great songs on the album. And overall, it's very gorgeous. It's so gorgeous and beautiful. It really hits you in the heart. And it also shows how much character Perfume Genius has and how much personality this album has. And this album, it's painful, but in a stargazing, in a galactic, in a very humane kind of way at the same time. So overall, this album is incredibly beautiful. It's very moving and touching, and it's also full of heart. It's heartfelt, it's sincere, and it's also incredibly honest. Number 21 is Rapsody's Laila's Wisdom.
Plus mates and enemies, and invested in. So I feel the energy, invested pursue.
Which is one of the most mainstream and poppiest hip-hop albums of the year. It's very colorful, it's very fun and entertaining, and it has a variety of sounds from the very peppy and fun power to some very casual and laid-back songs to some really catchy and groovy gangster tunes on the album. Overall, it's a roller coaster, it's a ride, and Rapsody really came out as a great rap artist, as a great new rap artist this year, and this album must not be overlooked. It's great, it's fantastic.